How are you?
Can't
Thank
wait for the
you.
new season.
Thank you. I'm excited. I'm done with it. It's so weird to be. It's so weird to be done with the season before people have seen the season.
So I watched the season finale. I want to talk about that. And I was so excited because I thought, well, maybe everybody's coming down. Then I was like, that ship shape doesn't look right. And now you have this whole new group of people that are coming in on the new season.
Yeah.
How did you decide to add this new dimension with the new cast and bringing the new people down to the ship?
You know, every year we like to kind of meet a new aspect of our world. We had done so many different things. Mount Weather, we did. Obviously, we expanded the Grounder world exponentially over the course of a couple seasons, and so this was sort of like, where else can they come from? And we loved the idea of kind of reversing the season one story in some ways. Clark and everybody, our heroes are now the Grounders, and this group of prisoners comes from the sky, and they were the prisoners, in the beginning. Obviously, much different group of prisoners. These guys are like hardcore murderers, but and our heroes weren't, obviously. But anyway, so the idea of getting to tell the story from that perspective is exciting to me.
Are there any good eggs in the Legis?
Yes, there are. We like to dimensionalize our bad guys. There are no bad guys, there are no good guys. We say that all the time, and it's true. Clark has done some awful things. Bellamy's done some awful things. We love them nonetheless because they're our heroes, and we are experiencing the story from their perspective. But hopefully the bad characters, quote unquote, are also people who we understand and can sort of like at least understand why they're doing what they're doing. And that's no different this season. Yeah. I mean, Dioza's very, she's a shapeshifter. She goes, played by Ivana Milicevic. She's an incredible actress and just a great comedian, incredibly likable. And so, yeah, her character is really hard to not like. Graveyard McCreary, he's definitely a straight up bad guy. We've done a couple of those in the course of the show. Cage Wallace comes to mind. Johnny Whitworth's character from Mount Weather, the president's kid. He was kind of a straight up bad guy. And Shaw, who is played by Jordan Bolger, is a good person. Like, he's good. So yes is the answer to your question.
There have always been these romantic relationships kind of running through each season. Are we going to have that this season, or is it taking a backseat to the action?
Well, it's always a part of the story for sure, and yes, it is the same this season. There's definitely relationships they're undergoing stress. They've changed a lot, obviously, in 6 years, and there are things to fight for. The people who you love. It's more about. It's sometimes about romance, but it's more about familial love. Like, who are you fighting for? And Space Crew is now a genuine family, and there are multiple relationships up there, and that's something that will be tested really, really early and often, for sure.
Why 6 years? Why not 5.5 or even 10 years? Why?
Well, we said that the death wave was going to leave the planet uninhabitable for 5 years, and so we wanted to create a time jump that added a little bit of mystery. Like, why aren't they down? They could have come down. Why didn't they? Clark doesn't know if they're alive or dead. It's safe to have come down for over a year. I think she says, why haven't you? And so, that was really why. It was random. Beyond 5 years, it was random. And it's been something that's driving them crazy up there. Like, they can go down, but they can't. They can't figure it out. Raven can't figure it out. The great mind has yet to be able to figure out how to get her people back down to Earth, and she will eventually. Spoiler alert. But it's a source of conflict when we first pick up their story.
And because Raven is such a great mind, I'm curious to know, as a scientist, what has she been up to while she's been in space? I imagine she's been working on something.
Well, they got everything running. Monty has his algae farm, which is feeding them, and he's kind of become a farmer, believe it or not, back to his roots as someone from Farm Station. And they've sort of, all of them except for Murphy, have kind of bettered themselves. They've all bettered themselves. Echo's taught them how to fight, and Raven's taught Amori how to be a pilot. They've all sort of made themselves better, taken advantage of the time to do that. And so that's definitely something that we see very, very early on. Murphy, on the other hand, not so much, and that's a source of conflict with the crew. They wish he was carrying his weight. He's not really carrying his weight.
He's the black sheep.
He's a bit of the black sheep. He's a bit of the what we realize about Murphy. I love Murphy, and Richard's performance is amazing, but he needs the shit to be hitting the fan. Like, he doesn't do well during peacetime, and so they're at peace up there, and he's a little bit, he needs a war, and that's when he is at his best, and he will get that very quickly. So hopefully he'll be able to at some point figure out how to overcome that, because you don't want to live at war all the time.
But I mean, there's going to be a ton of warring factions. Can you sort of separate them out for us? Who is
Yeah.
going to be fighting?
Well, there's essentially two armies. One crew that comes out of the bunker. That is an army. Octavia has that group, in fighting shape, and they believe that valley is their, inheritance for keeping themselves alive for 6 years, and the prisoners want it too, and they think it's theirs, and they've come back to Earth, and this is their second chance at being free, and they are not going. The valley's not big enough for both of them, and our other heroes are sort of trying to navigate that conflict, because it's not clear who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. So.
I know that it's a big planet, right? There's lots of land.
But there's no other survivable, in the spaceship, they spent weeks looking and orbiting and trying to find someplace to come down that had life, and they finally found this green patch of Eden, and that's why they landed there. And it just so happens that our hero Clark is living there with Maddie, and so, that's what tips off the whole thing.
That's ground zero for everybody.
That's ground zero for everybody. It's one garden, two armies. I think the slogan on the poster that I saw, or on that cool promo that CW put out, was one garden, two serpents. Earth never stood a chance. So that plays out.
With the new cast members, I know every season has had a little bit of humor, but it sounds like the new big bads might have a little bit more humor component to it to lessen the darkness.
Yeah, Ivana's got a kind of a cutting sense of humor for sure. She's great. That's Dioza. And McCreary is kind of, he's wicked, and he's in that way kind of funny, but not a good person.
Just very quickly, how far do you see the show going in terms of seasons? How far ahead have you thought?
Well, this season ends in a way that sets up for what could be an entirely new adventure in a totally crazy way that I can't talk about at all. But it could go on and on, really. I mean, we think that this was a reboot kind of in a way, the 6-year time jump, and nothing compared to what happens next.
So a reboot.
I don't like to even call it a reboot, but I've heard it called that. Yeah, it's a very different thing that happens at the end of the season that I'm excited about, and hopefully will not be spoiled before it comes out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.